Hello everyone and welcome to Medford Anywhere Learning TV. We're glad you're tuned in. We want to give a shout out to our friends at Southern Oregon PBS, KTVL, KDRV, and the Dove Network. Thank you for hosting us on your station. In the Medford School District, we have one shared vision, and that we believe that all are learning, and learning is for all. And what better place to do that than right here on Medford Anywhere Learning TV.
Hello students joining us from home. My name is Ben Garcia. I work for Southern Oregon PBS. I co-teach and mentor Student Reporting Labs classes at a few different schools here in the Medford School District. And we work with students from grade 7 all the way up to grade 12. Today we are going to conduct this online SRL, Student Reporting Lab lesson plan number 1, which is called Shifting the Frame. Our learning target is I can define and understand foundational vocabulary relating to journalism. In a second, you are going to meet my co-teacher, Mr. Ollinghouse from Hedrick Middle School, and we're going to kick off this lesson plan. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome, Mr. Ollinghouse. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience today?
Hi, my name is Ivan Ollinghouse. I'm an electives teacher here at Hedrick Middle School, and I do a lot of variety of classes, including our Student Reporting Labs, which is a journalism-based class where we get to learn how to interpret the news and create our own.
Yes, it's very exciting. You'll learn more throughout this lesson plan, but in general, this class is journalism and it's also video production. So we've already discussed today's learning target, but we have an essential question for the lesson plan, and that is, what is the difference between a topic, an issue, and an event? And this essential question is meant to activate pre-existing knowledge that you might already have in your brain. So, Mr. Ollinghouse, what do you think?
Yeah, I do think that is an interesting question because while we think of events, topics, and issues in the news, sometimes when we're learning about them, we still haven't quite separated the two, especially issues from topics. We kind of think of them as synonyms, but there's actually some distinct differences that we can bring forward as we start thinking about journalism in the context of all three of these.
Now let's review today's activities. In the next slide, Mr. Ollinghouse are going to talk about the differences and similarities between news topics, news issues, and news events. And we'll spend some time really going over this slide and talking about different phrases and terms that we have on this slide, because some issues can be events, some events can be issues, some issues can be topics. Sometimes one of these terms that we discuss can be an issue, topic, and event altogether. If you're confused right now, don't be worried. You will understand these terms much better after the conversation. And on the next slide, you'll see that the first activity where you get to actually do something creative with your hands relates to just generating 8 separate sticky notes that have the issues and topics that you're most concerned with or you're most interested in. And if you notice that on the next slide, you're going to take these issues and topics and you're going to put them on your own little mini poster called My SRL. And beneath your issue or topic, you will write a statement. I wish I knew something statement about your issue or topic, and we'll talk more about that in depth in a second. And on the next slide, you'll see that there's an activity where you take your top 3 news issues and topics that are near and dear to your heart, and you create a class board. Since you're at home, you can create a poster with your family by sticking your sticky notes to a sliding glass door or the refrigerator. And what you'll want to do is, with your class or your family, try to find out what your top issues are by everyone sticking their top 3 to a surface, and then having a discussion about why those are your top 3. And then on the next slide, we will show you some examples of real Medford School District students, examples of their I wish statements relating to topics and issues that are most important to them. And on the next slide, Mr. Ollinghouse and we will have a discussion about the one most important issue or topic to us both. We have a board here in our virtual classroom where we'll stick up our one most important issues on our class poster, and then we'll also stick up our one most important I wish I knew statement, and have a discussion about that. And on the next slide, which is the last slide, I will very quickly discuss this exit pass activity, which is something we normally do in the classroom at the end of the lesson plan, but you can also do at home with your friends or family as a fun way to reinforce the learning that you've undertaken or experienced. Mr. Ollinghouse, what do you think?
That's a lot to take in, but I think we'll get through it all. Even though it might take us 2 days to do this in the classroom, we'll get this down in a half hour for you.
The nice thing about being at home is that you have all the time in the world to do this. So enjoy this lesson with your family. Okay, Mr. Ollinghouse, are you ready for a short lecture about topics, issues, and events, and then a discussion about topics, issues, and events?
Yep, sure am. Let's get to it.
Let's do it. As I was trying to figure out how to best discuss with Ivan and you at home the differences between topics, issues, and events, I came across this great article about how a newspaper is the easiest way to understand the difference. And let me explain why. A newspaper is made up of a lot of sections. We have the sports section, health section, etc. And in these sections, you have a headline here, health. Health really means that this whole section is going to have articles about health. So health is the topic, and then the articles themselves are the issues. And that's probably the easiest way to understand the difference between topics and issues. Topics are broad enough to be kind of like the headline of a section in a newspaper, and issues are specific enough to be like the articles. You can really dig in and discuss them through writing an article. And so, in our newspaper, sports, as you can see here, has a lot of issues that can fall underneath it. So, for example, here you can see this headline that says officials concede Tokyo Games may be postponed. This article is actually old. They have been postponed, but the issue of the Tokyo Olympic Games, it falls underneath sports. It would not be in the economics section of the newspaper or the world or nation section. So let's look at another section here. Speaking of world or nation, here we have the broad topic, world and nation. And then we have a bunch of articles here. One that reads, government plans to ban vaping flavors. Vaping has been a really important issue in the United States the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. And there have been a lot of articles written about it. And I'm sure at some point it will become a broad enough issue that will be elevated to topic status. And that's a conversation that Mr. Ollinghouse and I will have. When does an issue become a topic? And in our health section of the newspaper, we know that health is a topic, and we see there's a headline there that says Italy sets more specific rules relating to the COVID-19 outbreak. And so that is an issue, and it falls underneath the broad area of health. Health is a topic. So let's have a deeper discussion with Mr. Ollinghouse about the differences and similarities between topics, issues, and events. So as you saw from the newspaper, there are many broad topics. And here, looking at the slide, you can see that of all these terms or phrases, topics are in blue, issues are in purple, events are in green. So let me just choose a phrase here. In the column here under topics, you see in the middle, there's a phrase that says climate change. Now, climate change is interestingly both a topic and an issue. You might say, well, there's not a section in the paper that says climate change. And my response to that is, well, when Ivan and I were growing up back in the 80s and 90s, climate change wasn't really talked about that often in popular culture. I'm sure there were professors researching it at universities, and there were even oil companies writing research papers about it. But it hadn't yet been elevated to topic status. It wasn't until the early thousands where we started seeing the climate change, and also we started seeing documentaries like An Inconvenient Truth, that journalists started writing more and more articles about it, and we started feeling and thinking that it was threatening our existential status here on the planet, that it became elevated to topic status. And I think that most people would agree that it is a topic. It's big enough to be a topic. So what do you think about that, Mr. Olinghouse?
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like something that is an issue can fundamentally transform. It can turn into a topic over time if enough things culminate or build up. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. And so why don't you take a look at the slide here and
sure.
pick out any topic, issue, an event, or a phrase that maybe combines two or three, and then talk about why it is both a topic and an issue and maybe an event as well.
Well, I could think of one right off the top of my head that's not even on the slide right now. That might be the COVID outbreak and our epidemic that we're in right now. So that one, at this point, has, I think, covered all three of these in one way or another. It's certainly an event. It's a moment in time that is captured, that there's this event that is happening. It certainly seems like there's a lot of issues related to it. Is that fair enough to say?
Absolutely. I keep hearing things like, this is the biggest thing that's happened to humanity since World War II. And so we know that almost instantly, because it has taken over our lives, that it has been elevated to topic status right away. And because it's such a huge, broad topic, there are tons of issues that fall underneath the topic of the COVID-19 outbreak. So what are some of those issues that you can think of off the top of your head, Mr.
Sure. I would think of specific issues relating to healthcare workers having access to PPE, personal protective equipment, is one of the core issues here that we're dealing with right now.
So issue that I can think of is how COVID-19 spreads, where we know that there are people that don't show any signs of having the virus that can spread it, and then obviously there are people that show visible signs, and we're still trying to figure out other ways and manners it is spread. Now we're finding out that man's best friend, our beloved dogs, can get it, and so we're still trying to understand a lot about how it spreads, and that is another huge issue that falls underneath the topic of COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Do you want to pick another one and we can talk about it? Let's lighten it up, maybe.
Hey, I see one up there that I like. How about the old GOAT conversation? What do you think? Should we go into the GOAT conversation?
Enlighten me.
Sure. GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time, which is obviously Michael Jordan.
Greatest of all time. I've heard that argument a lot in as it relates to the topic of sports, the issue of greatest basketball players of all times. And I think that a lot of young fans, including myself, what we forget is that there are basketball players that are far greater than Michael Jordan or LeBron James. We just weren't alive while they were at the height of, or the pinnacle of their careers. Bill Russell is a basketball player that comes to mind. He has over 10 championship rings.
Okay, you got me there. I mean, that's decent, I guess.
So as it relates to Michael Jordan, another issue that people like to talk about is, who is the better basketball player, LeBron James or Michael Jordan? Where do you weigh in on this argument?
Well, that one's obvious to me because it's absolutely Michael Jordan. But that's when we could start talking about that specific issue under this big general news topic.
So in terms of the topic of sports, the issue of Michael Jordan, one event that I can think of, very famous event, is Michael Jordan's famous Game 6, where he had the flu, very high fever, and he was able to perform at his best, if not better, under those circumstances.
These events can be short, but they can also be quite long as well. So, for example, let's take politics. We have lots of issues around politics, and politics is a topic unto itself. But the events in politics can actually sprawl out for a long period of time. For example, our presidential election that's coming up, along with all of our other general elections, turns into almost a 2-year news cycle, and it's a really, really big event. Now, the actual election day, where everybody is putting in their final polls or putting in their final ballots, that's a little snippet in time. But again, it's a smaller segment of that event amongst the backdrop of the entire event.
That's interesting that you bring that up, Mr. Ollinghouse. So we have the 2020 presidential election that's coming up. We also have the 2020 Democratic primary, which is a series of elections. So that's also an event that's extended out. So you have you have elections as a broad topic. You have the presidential election, which is also a topic, but it's also an issue. And then you have the Democratic primaries, which is also a topic and an issue. And all three of these topics and issues go together, and they're also events at the same time. And then there are small events like state elections.
So let's go ahead and move on to our activities for today. For these activities, you probably want to grab any sticky notes that you might have laying around, though even just pieces of paper will work just fine if that's all you got. Go ahead and grab a writing utensil as well. Anything else they're going to need?
The next slide.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
And as you can see here, what we're going to do is we are going to write 8 topics and issues that are important to us. So take some time, take a look at this slide, and think to yourself, what are some topics and issues that are most important to me? As you can see, there's one of my topics here, natural disasters. And then after you're done writing all 8 of your topics and issues on 8 separate sticky notes, then you can come back and write the I wish people knew statements on a separate sticky note, or you can write it on the back of your topic sticky note, however you want to do it. For this activity, you made your own My SRL poster or handout, or maybe it's just a collection of sticky notes on your refrigerator. And if you can see from mine, you can see 4 of the issues and topics most important to me, starting with education. We know that for sure is a topic because there's an entire section of the newspaper dedicated to it. Celebrities is next. There are entire magazines dedicated to talking about celebrities. Pandemics, we've discussed that pandemics is for sure a topic. And then the arts. And another thing that you should do is you should write an I wish statement. And if you look at one of mine, I have here, I wish people knew more about student reporting labs, especially how it trains students to be citizen journalists and report on community issues that are important to them. So let's take a look at some of Mr. Ollinghouse's topics and issues that are most important to him.
Yeah, so for my SRL, I chose 4 topics that are real near and dear to my heart. Mental health, poverty, music, nutrition. These are topics that I wish we could change how we frame in our media and in our community. These are, again, just my opinion, but let's take, for example, nutrition. Under nutrition, I wrote, I wish nutrition was a more talked about subject in our community. I don't know if we could talk about it enough, in my opinion. So those are a few of the issues and topics that I find are really important to me. Which ones are most important to you right now?
If you take a look here, my third most important issue is education, and I'm going to post that here on my side of our class SRL poster. You can do this at home with your family. Mr. Ollinghouse?
Yeah, for me, it's mental health is the big one for me.
Okay. And for me, number 2, Most important is the arts. And actually, I want to say something about this. When I was your age, there were a lot of music and arts programs being cut in schools. And so the arts are near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, next one for me is going to be nutrition. Nutrition is a big issue. I feel that we could all pay more attention to.
And my number one is pandemics, which is why I have 2 sticky notes here. And so I'm going to take one of those sticky notes and put pandemics as what's in the frame for our little mini student reporting lab class here. Mr. Ollinghouse?
Yeah, I have poverty here. I'm going to put poverty up here because that one is just incredibly important. That goes in my top 3. My biggest one, though, for me is mental health. I'm going to put that into the what's in the frame as well.
And so pandemics, the reason why this topic is most important to me is because I wish people knew that COVID-19 is not like the flu in many ways, especially relating to its morbidity and mortality rates, which are markedly higher without policies like social distancing, work from home, etc., etc. So if you don't know some of those vocabulary words, you can look them up. But that is what I wish people knew. My top I wish people knew statement. Mr. Ollinghouse?
Yeah, go ahead and give me just a little more distance.
Sure, let's do this.
Yeah, and I'm going to reach in here. Mine, with mental health, I wish people understood how our behaviors affect mental health, not just for ourselves, but for those around us as well. That's a real important topic for me. I'm going to throw that up there on the I wish people knew. Maybe I wish people knew more about.
Absolutely. So at home, please take your time to do these 3 tiers of activity at home. And don't worry about doing a handout format like we did or a poster format. You can use any wall or flat space at your home to do this with your friends or family.
Yeah. What were your most important topics, and what was that most important one overall to you, and what specifically about it was what got you on it?
Thanks for tuning in today. And for the last exit pass activity, you and your family member on a piece of paper each will write a response to the following prompt. If you could change how your most newsworthy topic is talked about by others, how would you cover it? Like if you had control over every newsroom in the world and how they cover the story. For example, if I had the power to cover the topic/issue of global warming, climate change in a different way, I'd make sure that a positive solution is mentioned at the end of each related article or news report about global warming/climate change. For example, did you know about ocean thermal exchange technology? That's another carbon-free source of energy that we have available to us. So if you would take some time and do this with your family member, and then you could talk about what you wrote, that would be an excellent way for you to reinforce the learning that you did today, and also the learning you will do, because the next lesson plan is about what's newsworthy. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for tuning in to Medford Anywhere Learning TV. Medford School District is a place where all are learning, and learning is for all.
My name is Stella, and I'm in 5th grade.
Tell me about the school board. What do you know about a school board and what a school board does?
I think it makes big decisions for the school, and do you decide field trips?
It is the people that decide stuff about the school, they're the people that decide all the school rules and stuff like that.
What do you think about that? I mean, it sounds kind of like a big job.
Yeah, it is a pretty big job. I've seen what they do, and it's pretty cool.
They volunteer, so they don't really get paid. It's kind of shocking that they don't get paid, but it's good that they're volunteering, you know.
Gracias, Medford School Board. So nice to meet you too, Dr. Champion. And yes, I have a couple of questions. This one's quite serious.
All right.
So, from one champion to another, who are you going to root for?
Well, what are my options?
South Medford Panthers, North Tornadoes.
Whatever team is representing Medford, I guarantee that's the team that I'm going to be rooting for sure.
If you got to make a holiday, what would it be?
Make a holiday. I think I would go with Color Day. Late January, when it's real dark and cold outside, we have our holiday, which is Color Day. And on Color Day, everybody wears their bright colors, like your bright pink. All the cakes are multicolored cakes, and there's confetti and things going up in rainbows, and you name it, there's color everywhere. And we take the gray world and we make it colorful. How's that sound?
Good.
It's pretty good. Thanks.
What state are you from?
I grew up and spent most of my life in Texas. I was born in a small town right in the center of Texas. I started teaching at an elementary school in Houston, Texas. I taught elementary theater arts for a number of years in the Austin area.
Have you been on Pottermore before?
Have I been on what?
Pottermore.
What is that?
It's a Harry Potter app.
Yes.
So you can take quizzes on it, and like, what's your Patronus and what's your house?
What's your Patronus?
It's a type of dog. I think it's a terrier.
That's so awesome. I'm afraid I'd get on there and be like, my Patronus would be like a chipmunk or something. I mean, I want something ferocious and incredible. I mean, I'm nervous to do this whole what's it called?
Pottermore.
Pottermore. That's awesome. What house are you?
Hufflepuff.
All right, Hufflepuff. That's awesome. I've always appreciated Hufflepuff.
Other countries, such as Finland, they have technology classes such as coding and computing. Do you think our school district could have the budget to implement those kinds of classes in schools?
Great question. As a matter of fact, it's something that the Medford School District has prioritized over the last few years. We've got, for example, the Chromebook rollout that's starting this year with 9th grade, which offers an opportunity for a tool for our students and teachers to be able to access technology very easily, literally in their hands. However, we know that coding is a skill that can grow, and it's definitely something that we are considering looking toward for the future. My son happens to be a computer programmer, and so this is very near and dear to my heart as well, so that's a great question.
What is your favorite type of car?
My favorite type of car is one that runs, that has an air conditioner, and that's pretty much it. I also like good gas mileage. Get me there safely, and have an air conditioner.
What's the first change you want to propose as superintendent, and why?
One of the things that I believe, John, is that it's important that there's not this idea that I'm going to bring all this whole new set of ideas into the system. That actually what we need to do is together with teachers and with principals and with students and with all of us, the board, coming together and saying, here's who we want to be, here's where we want to go, and then let's talk about then how we get there. So this idea that I'm some sort of magician who has all the tricks to make all those things happen, that's not the way it works. What happens is we together have the best ideas together. And so one of the pieces that I want to bring is to make sure that we're doing that we're bringing the voices of teachers and students and principals, central office folks, and the community together so that we can make some things better.
Do you go to different schools, or were you a teacher?
Yeah, so I do go to different schools.
No, like are you a sub or a teacher?
Oh, got it. So I am not a sub or a teacher right now. I do sometimes go into classrooms though. I love that, and I love the opportunity to hang out with students and do some teaching. I love it. And it makes me thrilled that for our teachers who do that every day, because it's incredible. They do incredible hard work, wouldn't you say?
Yes, they do.
They do.
They really do.
I agree.
They do really hard work every day to make sure their students are safe and healthy and not getting sick.
And learning.
And learning as well.
And learning. I mean, all those things is what a great teacher does. And so getting the opportunity to go see the teachers do that is one of my favorite things to do, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's true.